Let's begin with a question. If you had to choose between a bag of gold and a bag of tree bark, which one would you pick? Today, the answer is easy, but for most of human history, that tree bark was the ultimate prize. It was used to save the bodies of Egyptian pharaohs from the passage of time. It was used by doctors to fight the plague. It even started wars between global empires. We use it in our coffee without thinking. We sprinkle it on our toast on a quiet morning. But this spice has a long, bloody, and beautiful history. It is a story of mystery, greed, and wonder. It is the story of cinnamon. The heat of the desert sun disappears the moment you step inside. The air is suddenly cool. It is heavy with the sharp, sweet smell of cedarwood and ancient dust. You are standing in a tomb in the Valley of the Kings. The year is 1400 BC. Look at the walls. They are covered in bright paintings of gods with the heads of birds and jackals. A single beam of light falls across a stone table in the center of the room. On that table lies the body of a pharaoh. The priests are working in silence. Their hands are stained dark with oils. They are here to preserve the king. When you preserve something, you keep it in its original condition. You stop it from changing or rotting. Think of a flower pressed inside a heavy book. It stays perfect for years. That is the goal here, to keep the king's body perfect for eternity. To do this, the priests must embalm him. They use special chemicals and rare spices to prepare the body for the next world. Can you see the jars near the table? They are filled with a thick, golden liquid called resin. Resin is a sticky fluid that comes from the heart of a tree. It feels like warm honey on your skin, but it smells like a deep forest. The priests pick up small, curled pieces of bark. These are the same amber-colored sticks you find in your spice jar today. The Egyptians call it tisheps. They do not use this spice for cooking, they use it for magic. They fill the king's body with the dry bark. They wrap his skin in white linen soaked in cinnamon oil. They believe this scent is a gift from the sun god, Ra. To the Egyptians, cinnamon was a bridge. It was a path that connected the hot world of the living to the silent, golden world of the gods. But as the priests finish their work, a question remains. Where did they get this bark? They bought it from traders who traveled for months across the burning sands. These traders were rich, but they were also liars. They told stories of monsters to hide the truth. Because the real home of cinnamon was a place the Egyptians could only imagine. Where did those golden sticks come from? For more than 1,500 years, the origin of cinnamon was a ghost. It was a secret hidden behind a wall of stories. If you asked a merchant in the year 450 BC, he would tell you a terrifying tale. A merchant is a person who buys and sells things to make money. These merchants traveled across the shifting sands of the desert. They brought the spice to the west, but they never told the truth about where they found it. Instead, they told a myth. A myth is an ancient story that is often not true. People tell myths to explain things they do not understand, or to hide things they do not want others to find. And the myth of the cinnamon bird was the most famous of all. Imagine a massive grey mountain. The cliffs are sharp and straight. They reach toward the clouds like stone fingers. No human can climb them. Then you hear a sound. Whoosh! A giant bird flies over your head. It is larger than a man. Its feathers are the color of a dying fire. In its beak, it carries long, brown sticks. These are the precious cinnamon quills. High up on the cliff, where the air is thin, the birds build their nests. They use the cinnamon to make a soft home for their babies. How could a merchant get the spice? They told a clever lie. They said they brought large pieces of heavy meat to the bottom of the mountain. They left the meat on the stones and waited. The giant birds would fly down. They would grab the meat and carry it up to their nests. But the meat was too heavy. The nests were made of light, dry sticks. Under the weight of the meat, the nests would break. Crack. The cinnamon sticks would tumble down the cliff. They would fall right into the hands of the waiting merchants. Can you picture that? A giant bird, a falling nest, and a mountain of spice. This story was told by a famous writer named Herodotus. He believed it. For centuries, the whole world believed it. But why did the merchants tell this myth? They wanted to protect their secret. They did not want anyone else to find the green forests where the trees actually grew. As long as the world was afraid, the merchants could keep the price high. They made people believe that every stick was worth a man's life. One of those men was a Roman emperor. He was about to do something the world would never forget. The sun is setting over the marble heart of the world. The year is AD 65. In the city of Rome, the air does not smell like dust or stone. It smells like a burning, sweet forest. Inside a massive palace, Emperor Nero is lost in his grief. His wife is dead. Nero is a man of extremes. When he is sad, he is excessive. To be excessive is to do something much more than is necessary. It is to go beyond the normal limits of behavior. Think of a rainstorm that never stops until the streets are underwater. That is an excessive storm. To show the world his sadness, Nero does something that shocks every merchant in the empire. He orders his servants to gather every single stick of cinnamon in Rome. He takes the entire world's supply and he puts it in a giant pile. He lights a fire. The flames reach high into the night sky. The heat is intense. You can feel it on your skin, even from a distance. The orange light dances on the white marble walls of the temples, and the smell, it is overwhelming. It is the most expensive smell in human history. In one single day, Nero burned enough cinnamon to last the entire city of Rome for a year. Why would a man destroy something so valuable? In the ancient world, this was a sacrifice. A sacrifice is when you give up something very precious to show respect or to honor a god. It is a way of saying that some things are more important than money. Nero wanted to show that his love was more valuable than all the gold in his treasury. Think of that smoke like a signal of absolute power. By burning the spice, he was telling everyone, "I am so rich that I can destroy what you can never afford." For the Romans, cinnamon was more than a smell. They believed it was a miracle. But they still did not know where it came from. They paid the merchants, they burned the bark, they breathed in the expensive smoke. As the Roman Empire grew old and eventually fell, the truth remained hidden. People began to believe that cinnamon did not come from a bird or a mountain at all. They began to believe it was a gift from the longest river on earth. The hunger for cinnamon did not die with Rome. In the Middle Ages, people still wanted that sweet, woody scent. However, they still did not have a map. So they created a new story. Imagine you are a knight in the year 1248. You are standing on the banks of the Nile River in Egypt. The water is dark and rushing. The air is cool and smells like wet earth. You watch the local fishermen. They are throwing wooden nets into the deep water. When they pull the nets out, they find pieces of dry, brown bark. They find cinnamon. A knight named Sieur de Joinville wrote about this in his diary. He believed that the cinnamon grew on trees at the very edge of the world. The edge is the outside limit of a place. Think about the edge of a table or the sharp edge of a cliff. For the people of the Middle Ages, the edge of the world was a magical place. They believed it was the beginning of a mystical garden called paradise. They believed the Nile River carried a wonderful bounty of spices down to the human world. A bounty is a large amount of something good or valuable. Nature gives us a bounty of food in the summer. The Nile gave the world a bounty of cinnamon. Because they believed in this bounty, they never looked for the real trees. Why look for a farm when you can just wait for the river to bring you a gift from God? Look at the water again. Can you hear the splashing? Can you feel the rough, wet texture of the bark in the net? To the people of that time, every piece of cinnamon was a miracle. It was a holy mystery. But the world was getting bigger. Sailors were building stronger ships. They were ready to cross the dark, unknown oceans. They wanted to find the place where the golden bark actually grew. And when they finally found it, they discovered an island that would soon become a battlefield. The myths worked for thousands of years. But in the year 1505, the fog finally cleared. A Portuguese ship landed on a beautiful green island in the Indian Ocean. Today, we call it Sri Lanka. As the sailors stepped onto the white sand, they did not smell the salt of the ocean. They smelled something familiar. The air was thick and sweet. It was the scent of millions of cinnamon trees growing wild in the hills. The mystery was over. The land of the golden bark was real. But the discovery of the truth brought a dark change. The age of wonder was replaced by the age of greed. The Dutch East India Company wanted to control every single stick of cinnamon on the island. They wanted a monopoly. A monopoly is when one company controls everything. In a monopoly, nobody else is allowed to compete. Imagine if only one shop in the whole world was allowed to sell bread. That shop would have a monopoly. They could make the price as high as they wanted. To keep their monopoly, the Dutch were harsh. When someone is harsh, they are cruel or very unkind. A harsh ruler is someone who punishes people strictly for small mistakes. The Dutch were harsh to the people of the island. They forced the local farmers to work in the hot forests all day. They made them peel the bark from the trees under the burning sun. If a person was caught selling even a single stick of cinnamon to a stranger, the punishment was death. The air of the island was still sweet, but it was now mixed with the smell of gunpowder. The sound of birds was replaced by the cold ring of iron swords. Think of this history like a double-edged sword. On one side, the spice trade brought incredible wealth to Europe, but on the other side, it brought pain to the people who actually grew the spice. The cinnamon was no longer a gift from a paradise river, it was a product of forced labor. Eventually, the monopoly began to break. Other countries found ways to grow cinnamon in different places. The price began to fall. The gold turned back into simple bark. Today, if you visit the hills of Sri Lanka, you can still see the workers peeling the bark by hand. They use the same ancient techniques. But now, the spice is no longer a secret. It has traveled from the tombs of pharaohs to the hold of pirate ships, and finally, to your home. The tall ships and the stone palaces have turned to dust. Today, the world is a different place. Go to your kitchen, open the wooden cabinet, reach for a small, clear jar. The smell hits you immediately. It is sweet, woody, and warm. To most people, this spice is ordinary. Something is ordinary when it is usual or normal. It is not special or different. An ordinary day is a day where nothing exciting happens. We think of cinnamon as an ordinary ingredient. It is cheap and easy to find. But now, you know the truth. You know that this powder was once a gift for a god. Think of that small jar as a tiny time machine. When you hold it, you are holding the same scent that filled the tombs of the pharaohs. You are holding the bark that Nero burned for his wife. You are holding the secret that merchants protected for 1,000 years. Can you see the miracle in your hands? Even today, 80 to 90% of the world's true cinnamon still comes from those same green hills in Sri Lanka. Farmers there still peel the bark by hand, just like their ancestors. When we look at history, we begin to appreciate the things around us. When we appreciate something, we recognize its full worth or its true value. We understand how much history and work went into it. I hope you can appreciate your next cup of tea. If you could tell a Roman emperor that you have a jar of cinnamon in your kitchen, he would think you are the richest person on earth. He would think you are a king. The story of cinnamon teaches us that the world is connected. A tree in a distant forest can change the history of empires. A simple smell can travel across thousands of years to reach your nose. So, the next time you see that brown powder, do not just see a spice. See the giant birds. See the rushing water of the Nile. See the golden light of the ancient tombs. Remember that history is not just in books. It is right there, sitting on your kitchen shelf. The world is full of these small miracles. We only need to listen. History is alive. It is in the clothes we wear. It is in the food we eat. And it is in the spices we use every single day. Next time you smell that sweet, warm scent, remember the kings of Rome. Remember the emerald hills in the middle of a dark ocean. If this story made you see your kitchen differently, leave a comment. Subscribe so you do not miss our next journey. There are so many more stories to tell. Thank you for listening. Until next time.